Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today it's going to be the update to the Toxicity build. This is the Stamina Dragonknight for the Deadlands DLC. Now this is my main character technically, although on my main server is where you'll see it. This is actually on PTS, but this has been around for 5 years. Longer than that technically for me, but for you, the videos have been around for 5 years. This is the third video I ever made actually, and it's still following the same basic concept. Single target damage over time. Now, yes, of course, it does have AoE application and options for those of you that want that, but the primary use of it is supposed to be single target, damage over time, and yes, there's lots of poison, hence the name. The rotation is very, very static. It always has been, so you never have to change anything. You don't have to be confused or greeted with overcomplicated dynamic rotations that only apply to very specific situations and or calculated specifically for the dummy. This is straightforward, one rotation, never change it. Anyway, first of all, we're going to go into the stats. So let's pop a potion, make sure our buffs are running. This one's actually going to fall off very, very quickly, but we can see it anyway. So that is actually relevant depending on how you play. But we'll start looking at the weapon damage, which is 5443. If you can keep that up, great. It's going to go a lot higher. I'll actually hit about 8k. But the rest of the stats, 12.7k max magicka, 24.8k max health, and 30k max stamina. Stamina recovery is 954, which is really good. Plus, we've got some really big buffs for the DK with the resource management as far as poison status effects are concerned. We'll come to that later. Crit chances on 53.4 in group scenarios. Obviously, that can go higher because you've got buffs to come from other people. And, of course, our resistances are sitting on 14.5 across the board, which is actually pretty damn nice, especially since we don't have a resistance buff on. Not a bad thing at all. 64 points into max stamina. Thief Mundus Stone. Flat food. Yes, there's a bug there. It doesn't show the stats, but we're actually getting 5.3k max health. Almost 5.4. And almost 5k max stamina. So if you check this here, there's your stats. Now, something very, very important to consider. Or just be hyped about. For the first time ever, and I will explain more later, this build is a freaking werewolf. Yes, he's deliberately a werewolf. Now, that is going to be explained later. But for now, we're going to go on to the skills. These are going to be explained in detail, of course, so obviously stick by this if you want to understand how they all work. If you don't want to understand how things work and you just want to slap buttons, you are going to obviously not perform as well in some situations because you don't have that mindset of what things actually do. So, skip at your own risk. But if you don't want to skip, here we go. So, Ardent Flame, Venomous Claw. Second ability to unlock, starts off as Searing Strike, morph it to Venomous Claw. This is the strongest single target damage over time ability we have. Massive, massive damage over time for 14 seconds on single target with an initial hit as well. And it gets progressively stronger the longer it lasts. So every single tick will get stronger and stronger and stronger. Also, the initial hit guarantees a poison status effect, which is a 6-second damage over time effect. So we've got 2 dots in 1. This is very powerful. Do not let this run out. Next up, of course, is Barb Trap. This is in the Fighters Guild skill line. This is the last ability to unlock, so it takes a little while. Starts off as Trap Beast, morph it to Barb Trap. 18 seconds, single target damage over time with an initial hit as well. The initial hit is quite important because if you do overlap the skill, at least you still get the actual hit. Now, this will also grant you minor force, increasing all critical damage that you do. So if you crit, it's stronger. There is a cap now for crit damage. It's 125%. We don't quite reach that with this particular build, but if you have extras from your group, obviously you can now stack on top of that rather than deliberately building for 125% and not being able to take advantage of some extras. This needs to be on the target at all times. It's very important for your own buff and for the damage output, but this does immobilize targets that can be immobilized. It won't immobilize bosses, but you'll still get the buff, you'll still get the damage. So Consuming Trap is very simple. This is in the Soul Magic skill line. The first version of this skill, Soul Trap, you actually get for free when you first start the game. Now, if you morph it to Consuming Trap, and it will hit one target, and it will do damage over time for 10 seconds. Your highest resource determines which one of the 2 damage types it does. If you're built for magicka and spell damage and all that good stuff, it will do magic damage. If you're built for physical, stamina, and weapon damage, it will do physical. For us, it does physical. While this is on the target, it does damage over time, single target, in fact, but if the target dies, you will get 20% of your health, stamina, and magicka back. Yes, that does mean that if you have this on 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 targets, doesn't matter how many, if each one of those dies while this is active, they will all give you that much back. So 3 enemies in the room, all die at once, all had a dot on them. You just got 60% of your resources back. That's been in the game like that for a very, very long time. It's very easy to keep up your sustainability in ad pulls if you keep on top of this skill. Yes, I know some stuff changed, and of course we've got some passives to go over later where the DK can actually sustain very, very effectively if you do poison damage, but this is a massive, massive game changer for those of you that keep running out too quickly. Pay attention to the health of the enemies, keep this on the target that's about to die. Not to mention, of course, you don't even waste your stamina to apply it because it costs magicka. Rapid Strikes is our main spammable as such, but at the end of the day, it's more of a leading skill to apply the rest. This benefits us massively for the build, so you must pay attention to how the sets work once I get there. But for the sake of explaining the skill, starts off as Flurry, morph it to Rapid Strikes. Every stab that you do with this while it's channeling will get aggressively stronger per stab, and then the final hit, which will be the strongest one, will hit even harder. I would recommend the other morph for most players, because if you don't have lots of heals incoming, you're going to want some survival. The other morph, Bloodthirst, will actually do the same. It doesn't get aggressive per hit, but it does still have a final massive hit at the end. And the reason it doesn't have the scaling part of it is because instead you heal every stab. It's very, very powerful, very, very good for survival, and the damage difference is not going to be noticeable for 99.9% of the players. You might see a slight difference on the dummy, but in content, you will not really see a difference at all. It's not even 1k difference. It's tiny. So I would recommend the other morph, but it's up to you. Rending Slashes is next. Skill underneath it. Starts off as Twin Slashes, morph it to Rending Slashes. This will hit the target initially, then it will give a bleed for 10 seconds. Now, of course, the other morph, again, I still recommend, will do the same damage over time, single target, but the initial hit is slightly weaker. Where it says 2.9 there, that's not obviously accurate because we don't have buffs and such on, and it doesn't include crits, but it says 2.9 there. I think the Blood Craze version is like 2.3. But the bleed is the same. There's barely anything in it. You won't notice a massive difference, but you will get more survival. So the choice is yours. Finally, of course, before we get to the ultimate, if you don't want Rend and Slashes on your bar and you want to change your rotation ever so slightly, which we'll get to later, you will use 2 Rapid Strikes at the end instead of 1 to be able to fit this for emergencies. If there's lots of ads in the room and you want to get them down quickly and they're all quite low health, you can put Soul Trap on multiple enemies, then spin to win and kill them all and get all your resources back. That's a little more tactical, but once you get to practice the build, you'll understand that you can use that in lots and lots of different situations. Entirely up to you, however. Now, of course, the Flawless Stormbreaker is the ultimate on the front bar for passives. We'll get to passives shortly, but basically just leave this on your front bar. That's all you need to do. However, in emergency situations, this is a very cheap ultimate. You can use it if you don't have enough of the back bar ultimate and you want to kill something quickly, or if you just want to boost a weapon and spell damage because you're in a big ad pull and you think you can get the resources back or the ultimate back quite quickly. It's up to you, but this will give you 300 extra weapon damage and spell damage for 20 seconds if you apply it, and it also will apply an initial hit in area of effect to all targets, and it will affect 6 targets with a single target damage over time effects. So this is also very, very nice indeed. So it's up to you whether you activate it. I personally would use it in situations where you really need to, rather than just using it as your main ultimate, because the back bar one is stronger if you can maintain it, use it, or stay inside of it during a mobile fight. It's a bit tricky sometimes. This is a swap out. This is very, very powerful if your healers are on point and if you're not a squishy, squish, squish, dead carpet. This is very strong. Starts off as Lava Whip, morph it to Molten Whip. Yes, I know, Stamina can use whips now. They could anyway, but now it's more beneficial because they scale off of max resources. We're not talking about that today. This particular morph is here on purpose. This also got a buff. Basically, for being on the bar, any Ardent Flame ability we use while on this bar will give us 75 weapon and spell damage, and it will stack up to 3 times. If you don't use the whip, you won't consume that buff, and it will stay with you, even if you swap bars. Now the trick here, 1, 2, 3 Ardent Flame abilities. But it used to be a 5-second timer, so you would use it, swap to the front, it would fade off. Use it, swap to the front, it will fade off. Now, because of our rotation and its duration, we can actually maintain this almost 100% of the time. In fact, we can maintain it 100% of the time in single target fights, as long as we don't have to run around the room. And even if you do have to run around the room, you can just activate this a few times and keep it running. That is a choice. The other option for that is a heal. You can go into the Assault skill line, and of course unlock Vigor, and morph it to Echoing Vigor. Yes, of course, the other one is single target and is a shorter duration, so a bit more bursty. But the heal output is the same. This just has an extended duration. It heals every 2 seconds instead of 1, and heals your group as well within a 15-meter radius. And more importantly, if you're using multiple characters using this skill and you can coordinate them, you can stack this. It's very, very powerful. If you check out the VMOL video where I show you how to survive during the orb kiting phase when nobody kited at all, we were stacking vigors. It's incredible. So I would highly recommend this most of the time, but if you're in a situation where your healers are absolutely fantastic and you're not struggling at all, put the whip on, you'll get more weapon and spell damage. Now, bow skill line, this does take a while to unlock, unfortunately, but poison injection is absolutely insane and we need this for the build. Poison arrow to start with, morph it to poison injection. And of course, this does an initial hit for poison damage. More poison, of course. We are a poison-ish build. And during the fight, the lower the health, the more damage it will do. Once it gets under 50%, this will get more and more and more aggressive. Don't let this run out. Noxus Breath, very important. This is in the Ardent Flame skill line. Massive duration. This will hit infinite amount of enemies in area of effect for the initial hit, because there's no cap for direct area of effect damage. However, since this carries a buff and debuff type skill, the single target damage over time per target carries the debuff. Debuff based area of effect skills from sets or skills themselves have a cap. 6. So when you apply this, the initial hit will hit everything, but 6 targets will be affected with breach and single target damage over time poison effects. So that's very important to note. That's how that skill works. But again, the initial hit will hit infinite. Flames of Oblivion, same skill line. Starts off as Inferno, morph it to Flames of Oblivion. This has been buffed as well for AoE situations. Basically, you apply it and for 15 seconds, every 5 seconds, you fire a fireball. Scaled off of your highest offensive stats. So for us, stamina and weapon damage, but it costs magicka, so that helps our resource sustainability as well. It gives Major Prophecy and Savagery now, so crits for both weapon and spell. And instead of firing 2 fireballs, so 1 per target if you've got 2 targets, it now fires 3. Single target, you'll only see 1. 2 targets, you'll see 2. More than 2 targets, you'll see 3. This got boosted. Very nice indeed, don't let it run out. Also, these 2 contribute to stacks for Siphon Fury for your whip, if you're slotting it. Endless Hail. Yes, of course, you could go Arrow Barrage, but for this particular build, it's crap. Arrow Barrage is such a short durated but damage over time bonus to it. It's not worth it. 8 seconds, but it has a 2-second wind-up. So the rotation is roughly 10 to 11 seconds or so. It will have a 3-second gap, which is horrible for our weapon glyph and horrible for our damage over time in general. It's too short. Endless Hail was much, much better. 2-second wind-up, giving this a 12-second active duration. Very, very handy. Don't let this run out. Leave it on the ground underneath the target at all time. If the target moves, move this. Keep it up. Standard of Might is our main ultimate. Do not leave home without this. This is incredible. Starts off as Dragonknight Standard, morph it to Standard of Might. You unlock this at level 12 of this skill line, so you get it very, very early. In fact, Noxus Breath, Venomous Claw, Soul Trap, Rapid Strikes, Rend and Slashes, you can get all of those before you're level 10 in the game. You can get them very, very early on. Now, when you put this down, you get 20 seconds. 20 seconds worth of this ultimate. Every single second, any enemies inside of this will take flame damage, scaled off of your highest resources. And you will put Major Defile on them, reducing their healing received. And you will increase all of the damage that you do by 15%. So don't drop a blank banner with no damage down. Have your damage already running. Drop the banner, everything that's already running gets improved, and now everything you do after that will be stronger as well. Also, anyone standing next to this, one of your allies, can actually take a synergy and pin enemies to the ground and shackle them with a big, big flame AoE burst damage ability. So they must take the synergy. It's really, really important. So basically, stand inside the banner, do loads of damage. Then when it comes back again, do it again. In a mobile fight, obviously this can be tricky, but as long as you are standing in the banner, you will be the one doing the damage. So if the enemy isn't inside of it, it doesn't matter. It's where you stand. So if you are in a ranged situation, but oh no, I've dropped my banner, but you have to stay ranged anyway, stay in the banner. You can still hit them from range with your bow. It will still benefit you. Now we're going to get on to passives. This is very important, so do pay very close attention to this passive here, which got buffed to fucking back. I have no idea what they were thinking when they thought they were going to buff this, but it's done, so enjoy. Basically, before, yes, of course, burning status effects or poison status effects, so anything that could happen by chance from flame and poison, is stronger for the Dragonknight. We have a 50% increase versus any other class. Great. However, applying a new burning status effect will give you now back 1,000 magicka. Applying a new poison status effect will give you back 1,000 stamina, and there's a cooldown of 0.5 of a second. That is bonkers. It used to be 500, now it's 1,000. Just for argument's sake, by the way, this is a poison ability that applies poison status by default. So while it looks like this costs you 2.1k stamina, almost 2.2, technically costs you 1.1 or 1.2 because you get 1,000 back instantly. Every single tick of this could apply another poison status effect, as with this and this. If they do, every time that happens, you get stamina back. Flames of Oblivion, every single time this fires, you could apply a burning status effect, as you could with the banner as well, which again will give you 1,000 magicka back. It's bonkers. Such a strong passive. I personally, myself, I don't think it needed a buff because I never really struggled with sustain in the first place. But some people do, because some people like to burn through their resources like it's not going to run out and then wonder where it's gone. Across the board, this is a bonkers upgrade. It's really, really nice. When you deal direct damage with any of those abilities in this skill line, you will slow down the enemy. Nice. And increases the damage over time of Fiery Breath, Searing Strike, and Dragonknight standard abilities, and increases their duration. That's Noxus Breath, Venomous Claw, and Standard of Might. Those are their base versions, but it applies to the morphs as well. Very important. This increases the damage, this has changed also, of your fire and poison attacks by 5%. DK used to have an increase to fire AoE damage, and it used to have an increase to our sustainability because it used to be a reduction to cost to poison skills. That was the old passive. Now it's just more fire damage, more poison damage. Done. Happy days. This skill line is very nice as well. This will increase the amount of block damage you can basically absorb, so you take less when you block. This will give you a heal and receive bonus if you have a Draconic Power ability active. We technically don't, so it's not massively essential, but just in case you want to put any of these on, you can, if you've got the spare points. Increases health recovery. That's not important because we don't have any of these skills on again. However, there is a side effect to this particular passive. All of your melee-based abilities have a 5-meter range at default. For the DK, we have 2 meters extra. So we can actually reach 7 meters where everyone else can reach 5. And of course, we've got resistance bonus. Get that. Earth and Heart is essential. If you use any Earth and Heart abilities, the duration is increased, obviously. We are going to use this occasionally, but we'll get to that in a moment. That's a swap out for your ultimates. That will extend the time of it. When you use any ultimate, and this got buffed also and leveled out quite cleanly, any ultimate you use, the amount of points used will be multiplied by 50, and that will be translated into health, magic, and stamina. So the bigger the ultimate, the bigger the reward. Now, of course, I said you can use this as a no shit button, as 125 points times 50. Put that on your resources, you just got all that back. Very helpful. Do use your ultimates, don't hold on to them forever. Any Earth and Heart ability you cast will give the group Minor Brutality for 20 seconds, increasing their weapon damage. Very handy ultimate regen as well, if you do use Earth and Heart abilities, because you can get 3 ulti back every 6 seconds by using a new one. We're technically not actually using any on this particular build. You can choose to use Igneous Shield or something if you want, but generally if you've got a DK tank, they'll be spamming that if they choose to. You might have another DK in the group using this. You can bring it or someone else can bring it, but for us specifically, this build doesn't use any of those, but we do have corrosive armor just in case we need it. That is a emergency I can't die button, depending on the mechanics. That is one of the options for swap outs. When we get to the gear later, I'm going to explain where you can put that, depending on your group. And of course, if you use any abilities from this skill line, again, we're not really using any, you will get 990 stamina back if it's a magicka-based skill. So if you are using Igneous Shields for emergencies, every time you use this, you get stamina back. These are just in case you do choose to use one from this skill line. These two are essential, you need them anyway. Dual wield, get every single one of these. This will increase your damage to low health targets, light attacks, and skills. This will increase your weapon damage of your offhand weapon because your offhand weapon is weaker. This will reduce the stamina cost of these abilities. You need that. Get it soon. This will increase the damage you do versus stunned, immobilized, disorient, or silenced enemies, which cannot be translated on the dummy. And, of course, this depends on your weapon of choice. Each one will give you these bonuses here. So mace, sword, or daggers, they all have their own bonuses. And yes, they do stack so that you can end up with multiple. So each axe will give you 6% critical damage increase. So 2 of them is 12. Each mace is 1650, so 33. And, of course, you can see where we're going with this. Quite straightforward, easy to understand. Your choice, what weapons you use. For us, we're actually using 2 daggers to get the increased crit chance, but it's entirely up to you. A very good option also for this particular build was 1 dagger and 1 axe, because when you did crit, it really did scale it up quite nicely. Again, it's up to you. Bow, of course, you want every single one of these. Increased damage at range, increased critical chance just for having a bow on your bar at the time, reduce the cost of the skills. Dealing damage with a light attack is very essential, by the way, light or heavy. Every one you do will give you a 5% increase to your bow damage for 5 seconds, and it will stack up to 5 times, and then stay with you consistently every time you do another light or heavy. We're not going to get the full benefit of that all the time. We're probably going to get about 3 or 4 per rotation, and it will fall off eventually, but it does carry over to the front bar for skills that are already running. And of course, if you are deliberately positioned at range to make sure you're out of a particular mechanic, then of course you can light attack, spam your bow abilities, and benefit from this for longer. Understand that skill, don't miss your light attacks. And if you dodge roll, you run faster. Don't dodge roll too soon after a previous one, because you will get penalized for it. We're not using any light armor at all, except for one particular version of the build. So for that one, we're just going to say penetration is a benefit. 1 piece. But anyway, the main build, no light, no heavy, or medium. Now, medium armor, you do want all of these, of course. You can read through the benefits in your own time. We're not going to go over that today, but you can get these. This increases your critical damage per piece. So we've got 14% crit damage bonus. This will increase your stamina recovery and reduction to stamina cost per piece. This will increase your ability to sneak because it will be cheaper and cheaper, and your detection radius is smaller. This will increase your weapon and spell damage, and this will increase your movement speed and reduction to cost for dodge roll. Very, very agile, very flat weapon and spell damage and crit damage bonuses. Very handy indeed. Now, of course, we are a werewolf. This is a side part of the build. You don't have to do this, but I'm putting this in here because it's bloody nuts. Werewolf, of course, you want brutal pounce. Every time you hit a target, you'll get an extra 100 weapon damage for each enemy. So if you stand on one target and hit it multiple times with this skill, you'll stack it up. If you jump into 6 targets, you'll get all the stacks at once. But this has a massive bleed, and it gets stronger and stronger the lower the enemy's health. This will give you major berserk if you activate it, but if you've got full health, it'll also resource stamina. And this is also a heal. This will fear the enemies, which will basically stun them on the spot and knock them all off balance, which is very, very handy. And, of course, it will debuff them. So that is also really helpful. And it will apply maim. Froze for a moment there. And while slotted, it will give you savagery. This is basically a spammable. Massive physical damage. And enemies that are facing you take more damage from the attack, which is very, very nice. And Claws of Life, of course, you activate this once. It's a 10-second damage over time disease effect, and it will heal you every second as well. So these are the main skills we're using for the werewolf. There are 5 skills. There are 2 morphs to each. This is what we've chosen. And of course, we've gone Berserker because we want more damage over time. And the heavy attacks deal splash damage as well, which is really, really nice. We have huge max stamina. We have huge resistances as a werewolf. And while slotted, it will give you a bonus to recovery. We're not a werewolf actively all the time, but you can be if you want to be. And I'll explain that more when we get to rotation shortly. Increased movement speed. Increased stamina from your heavy attack restore, which is huge. When you deal damage during werewolf transformation, it is increased by 4 seconds, and this can happen once every 5. So basically, every 5 seconds, you lose 1 second instead of 5 as werewolf. This will increase your weapon and spell damage by a whopping 18% and give you a resistance buff. And of course, this reduces the cost of your transformation by 20% for each transformed werewolf or direwolf in your group, including yourself up to a maximum of 80%. So the more werewolves in the group, the better. That's going to make some more sense when we get to the rotation. Don't want to confuse people with Werewolf too much, but it's going to help. Now, of course, Intimidating Presence reduces the cost of your fighter's guild abilities. We need that. Reduce the cost of this. This increases your weapon and spell damage by 3% per skill. One here, one here. Happy days. That's why we have this here for the passive. If you don't want that passive, just put Werewolf. You'll have loads of recovery. Win-win. This will give you ultimate every time you kill an enemy on this bar. This would increase the damage of your fighter's guild abilities full stop, but if it's against a player, obviously vampires and werewolves take more. Major skill we're not using. Undaunted is important. For each type of armor we're wearing, we get a 2% bonus to our resource pool wearing one type of armor. But when we're a werewolf, we do actually have a morph or setup version to have 2 different types of armor, so we'll get a 4% there. This is very important. Any synergy you pick up gives you 4% max health, max stamina, max magicka. Stop complaining about your inability to sustain if you are one of those people that refuses to take synergies. You take them on the dummy, so take them in content. Orc, of course, we are an orc. Yes, you can still be a cat if you really want to, but this particular character, my main one in fact, even though I've demonstrated that you can use a cat, has always stayed orc. Ever since the first race change stuff came in, I believe. Or maybe it was an Imperial. No, I changed him as Imperial ages ago. He's been an orc for about 3 or 4 years. Anyway, increase to max stamina, increase to max health, and you heal once every 4 seconds when you deal damage, so you're a big brawler, and that can crit too. And of course, you have increased weapon and spell damage, and you run fast. So we're fast, very healy, very tanky, and loads of stamina. Fantastic. Yes, the orc used to have a lot more stamina than that, but this literally outweighs the reduction to stam, so it's really nice. Orc is absolutely solid, but you can use any race you like. You want to use Dark Elf or Cat or Nord or even Breton, whatever you want. It's entirely up to you. But we've chosen these passives on purpose. If you don't have these, you might have to wiggle some of your stats a little bit to suit you. Alchemy, finally, the most important passive in the game, in my opinion, if you want to do anything substantial with your character in combat. Medicinal use. 30% longer potions. Our potions last 47 seconds instead of 35, 36. This is essential. Your potions are buffs. Don't let them run out. So now we're going to get to the gear. This is very important. The armory station is free to put in your house. Go into this area here where you can purchase things, stuff and things. Look, it costs you 0. Yeah, I know they say 1. They're on PTS, don't worry. But it costs you 0. The merchant will cost you 5k to take with you out in the field. But in your house, no pennies. Get it, it's free. Now, this allows us to swap gear very quickly, and skills and morphs and champion points and werewolf and vampire and all that good stuff. So what are we using? So we'll start off with the basics. This is our single target damage over time setup, the main purpose of the build. We are using Maelstrom daggers, 2 of them. You don't need perfected if you don't have VMA done yet. You can use the basic ones. You can use the normal version. The only difference is you won't have 103 extra weapon damage on the front bar. But if you use flurry, you know, rapid strikes, our stab, for the next 4 seconds, all single target damage over time effects that you apply will be stronger, making them effectively 1.6, almost 1.7k weapon and spell damage more powerful. So you rapid strikes, ... rapid strikes again, ... Simple as that. That's going to be in the rotation. That's all you need to know about that. We are using poisons, double dot poisons. Yes, they can apply a status effect, which means yes, you get stamina back if it fires. Very handy. But these two, while they're both daggers, precise and sharpened, were very effective. But you can choose any weapon combination you like. Swords were quite nice, but you had less crit. But technically, your flat damage was higher, so if you did crit, it would go up. Crit damage from axes was also quite nice. 1 of each. Very nice. Up to you. Back bar. Master's bow. Do you need the perfected one? No. The perfected one gives you 103 extra weapon and spell damage on the back bar while you're there. While you're not, you don't have it. So technically, when we swap from the front to the back, we've got the same weapon damage from our sets, but you're not going to be there for very long. So the only thing that really matters is the bonus. So you can get the normal one if you want. The bonus is the target you affect poison arrow with. Yes, it can affect multiples, because you can hit loads and loads of different targets. 1 over there, 1 over there, and 1 over there. Each one affected with poison injection will effectively have 330 weapon damage added to you for the damage you do to that target. It won't show in your stats because it's not your buff. It's like you're hitting that hard. It's almost like a debuff to the target. So if you were 8,000 weapon damage right now, you would be, versus that target, 8,330. If you don't have this active, they don't get the extra damage. It's very strong, though. Make sure your poison injection never runs out. Now the shocker. We're not using deadly. We're not. Did it get nerfed a little bit? Yes, it had to, because it's being overused by just about everyone. It's now 15% damage for damage over time and channeled abilities, rather than 18. But this was stronger. Pillar of Nirn. This and Reliquin combined is feckin' bonkers. Stamina bonus, crit chance, weapon and spell damage. Nice and easy to pick up as well. You can get it from a normal dungeon. When you deal damage of any kind, guaranteed, this will hit the target and small radius area of effect targets as well with an instant hit. Each target caught by that will have a bleed applied to them for 10 seconds, and this can crit. Any crit damage done by you can now be applied to sets as well if they scale off weapon and spell damage. Procs can crit, except for Reliquin and Xyn. So this has 100% uptime. 10 seconds up, 10-second gap. It can literally apply as soon as it's been run out, or as soon as it has run out even. Very, very powerful. Reliquin is quite close, actually. These two are very, very close. If you didn't have Reliquin, you could just use this and another set. If you do have Reliquin, definitely use it, but you've got to keep up your light attacks. This will do crit damage. This will have a crit bonus. Maximum stamina if you have perfected, not maximum stamina if you don't. Minus Slayer and another crit bonus. And, of course, every single light attack that you do stacks up a wind up to 10. Continuous light attacks will continuously keep this wind running. It will do incredible single target damage over time, but as soon as you stop doing light attacks for more than 5 seconds, it will fall off. Most people can use this on a dummy. Most people can't use it in content. That's a fact, especially inside mechanics where they have to move and go ranged. Don't be one of those people. If you do have to move, if you do have to go ranged, go to your back bar, keep your light attacks up with your bow. This will stay on the target. If you can't actively keep this up in content, change it to something else because your 5-piece bonus is useless. Be honest with yourself. Be as strong as you can be as a player. But if you can't keep this up, not a problem. Use something else. And I've got an option for you for that something else. And it's been on the build forever. Before we do that, weapon damage on every single one. Bloodthirsty on all of them. These can be in any order. You can get them on normal or you can go for vet. It's up to you. But the other variation... Yes, you can see we've got different skills here. So you can have corrosive armor if you're in a pug with a heal and with the healy versions of the stabs. Handy. The other version is this, the debuffer version. Basically, same setup. Perfected or normal maelstrom weapons. Perfected or normal master bow. Normal or vet dungeon for Pillar of Nirn. And normal or vet Maw of Lorkhaj for Alkosh. Alkosh has been on this build for 5 years, despite people trying to ridicule it. It always worked. But it has been buffed to a stupid amount. Before, it used to give a 3010 penetration debuff. Now, based off your weapon and spell damage, it's 6k. That is massive. If you take a synergy, the initial burst from taking that synergy will do damage in area of effect. Then, each target up to 6 will be debuffed by 6k penetration for both physical and spell. And it will do a bleed, or physical, sorry, damage over time effect on the target. Each one individually as well. And finally, it can crit. So every single tick of damage can crit. If you take one synergy every 10 seconds, this has 100% uptime. If you take multiple synergies within those 20 seconds, then not only do you have 100% uptime, but you also have constant extra bursts of waves of AoE damage every time you take a synergy. It's very, very powerful. It always has been, and now it's in a really, really nice place. Yes, of course, it's a DPS set by design. Yes, of course, people used it on tanks in the past, but now you need high weapon and spell damage, otherwise that 6k pen is not going to happen. The lower your weapon and spell damage, the weaker that is. It scales off of your stats. So we've got huge weapon and spell damage. This can stay with us the whole time, and it doesn't matter if we're a werewolf or not. Speaking of werewolf, this is when the gear changes. Werewolf. If you are a werewolf, we don't need the maelstrom weapons. because we can't use Flurry. So what we do is we put Pillar of Nirn on the front bar, because we never swap bars. 2 weapons. Now, the types of weapons don't matter, the traits do. So Nirnhoned and Sharpened. Then, ignore the bow, it's irrelevant. You can still go with poisons, they do fire. Your attacks from your fists and hands count as weapons. We're using this, and I'm not going to try and pronounce that. This is from Unhallowed Grave. Every single light attack you do adds a stack, up to 5 seconds. If you have another light attack within those 5 seconds, you do another and another and another. When you get to 5, pops. Big fist comes out of the ground, stuns the enemy, and smashes them really, really hard. Scales off of weapon and spell damage. We have huge weapon and spell damage as a werewolf. This is stupidly powerful. It does have a cooldown, especially if the enemy has already been immobilized or stunned, but this hits so hard. And all we're doing really as a werewolf for the most part is light attacking if you want to. Reliquin, light attacks, keep them up, nice and easy. This set, light attacks, keep them up. You can't really fail it on a werewolf. And Pillar of Nirn, just hit. So you have constant damage over time here, constant damage over time here, big bursty hit, and all the bleeds that come from the werewolf, plus the poison status effect chance that you get from this, and you get stamina back. It's literally win-win. Keep the build exactly the same, except add the monster set and add the weapons. Now we're going to get to the champion points, then I'm going to explain the rotation. So, these really don't matter that much, apart from your slottables. These passive bonuses here, extra stamina, extra magicka, extra crit chance, they're all quite small. They're not going to make or break the game for you. They are very, very small bonuses, but they do unlock what you need. Ones that do really count are things like this. Extra status chance, that's huge. Extra flat weapon damage, quite nice, not the end of the world, but this is huge. All these need to be unlocked eventually. But before you even get there, all you really need to focus on is this. Backstabber, obviously when you're behind the target, you get the extra critical damage. That's awesome, still very relevant. Make sure you get this as soon as you can. However, if you are the werewolf, or if you're not behind the target, you're going to want this. The reason is, obviously it's weaker, but if you're not behind the target, you want a crit damage bonus. And if you are a werewolf, most of the time you would want to be in the face of the enemy because your raw does more damage up front if you're facing them. So this is more beneficial for you then. Otherwise, you're getting the weaker version. And then these three. Deadly Aim, Thaumaturge, and Master at Arms. Deadly Aim is single target stuff. We're built for single target damage over time. Thaumaturge is damage over time. And Master at Arms is for anything that's single or area of effect, which counts as direct. Light attacks, Flames of Oblivion, Noxus Breath initial hit, Spin to win, they're all direct damage. So that's very, very important. Direct means an insta-hit. It doesn't mean one target, it means anything that goes once. So these 4 slottables are key. The rest you get in your own time, these unlockable kind of passives. And you can swap this for this, depending on the situation. Red stuff is very simple. Same again. All these ones here, all these white or yellow ones, they are passives. They will stay with you forever. Unlock them in your own time. These, however, are what you want straight away. So you've got the health bonus, the resistance bonus, and a recovery bonus. And then, of course, you want to unlock these. So you start here, go here, and then here, and unlock this. Every single thing that you kill will give you back 1,500 stamina. The green tree is not essential. However, while unlocking these, leading up to your slottables, Treasure Hunter, obviously, we are going to be looting stuff all the time. That helps to get higher quality loot. This makes you run faster between fights. This will have a chance of not even using a potion or a poison. And this will make your food last longer. So they're quite beneficial, regardless of the rest being more out of combat based. And that's it. Slottables are more important than passives because passives are inevitable. You don't need max champion points. You don't even need half. That will all be on the website, of course. Now the rotation. This is quite straightforward. So, we need to make sure that we stab something before we apply our damage over time. Then we have 4 seconds. As you can see in the buff timers, you can see like a small version of Flurry. There, on the right-hand side. If we can apply our single target damage over time before that runs out, good. If not, do it again. Add some more. Now this, and this, and your poison, and your status effects, and your poison injection, and your breath all count as single target damage over time, regardless of their AoE application. It's per target. So this will buff them all. But what you need to do is time everything and make sure that they all get the benefit. Breath is the only one that's going to miss out, but it's really not worth it. Yes, tested that, of course. This, luckily for you, has already been done. So what you need to do is everything in this order, with a light attack between everything. Light attack, rapid strikes. Light attack, venom claw. Light attack, soul trap. Light attack, rend and slashes. Yes, I slowed that down, but if you look very carefully, the speed of it, light rapids, light venom, light soul trap, light rending, they all landed before the timer ran out. Now, beast trap does apply, and so does poison injection. So, once you've done the first part, light attack, rapid strikes, light beast trap, swap bars, then light volley, Ender's Hail, light poison injection, light flames of oblivion, light breath, swap. Now what we just did there is we made sure our ground-based AoE was down. We made sure our single target damage over time was applied. We made sure our flames was kept up, which contributes towards the whip stack. And we made sure our breath was reapplied to also contribute to the whip stack, and then swap. So, if I was to do that again, the last part, nice and quick, you will see that the flurry bonus doesn't run out before I apply poison injection. Light rapid, beast swap, light Ender's Hail, light poison injection, light flame. Just squeezed it in there. So, you've got 2 major flurry casts that cover 5 dots, not including your poisons and status effects. Yes, that does fluctuate your numbers a little bit. So we'll start again. Light rapids, light venom, light trap, light rend and slashes, light rapids, light beast trap swap, light volley, light poison injection, light flames, light breath, swap, start again. So we'll simplify it. Listen carefully. Light rapids, dot 1, dot 2, dot 3. Light rapids, dot 1 swap, volley, dot 2, done. Flames, breath, swap. Start again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, done. Rinse, repeat all day long. Ignore the numbers on that, of course. That's staggered to hell and back because I am hitting that over a very long period of time and doing nothing here. But during that time, all of your light attacks will contribute towards your Reliquin, and all of your damage will contribute towards Pillar of None firing. It's all done for you. Poison injection will keep up your damage on the target because of the 330 extra weapon and spell damage, and you use your banner whenever you can. That's it. It never has to change. Of course, if you're in some situations where you are in... Maybe you're in an ad pool of some description and you've got loads and loads of stuff to kill. Well, of course, you can then equip your other version of the setup. And if there are loads and loads of ads and they're all going down quite steadily, volley, breath, focus on the main target. Maybe you want to dot a couple of them with soul trap. And then when they're all about to go down, spin to win. Happy days. Beast trap down again, volley, breath, poison injection what you can. Focus on one target, keep soul trap on multiples, and spin to win as they drop. And that's in ad pulls. The majority of the time, that single target damage over time rotation that I demonstrated never, ever, ever has to change. One thing to note, by the way, if you are at range and you want to keep up Reliquin, keep these up. Even if you're not keeping up your volley, which you should. Even if you're not keeping up your poison injection, which you should. Keep these up to keep that Reliquin spinning. And if you want to keep up your whip bonuses, if you have it stacked, then of course at long range you can still fire Ardent Flame abilities once every 5 seconds so that when you do come back in, it's there. Now the fun part. Now I'm going to show you the werewolf side of things. So we will equip the werewolf. We no longer have to worry about swapping bars. All we need to do is keep up our potions and hit stuff. So you could just fire light attacks if you really wanted to, which is fun because Reliquin's firing and so is Pillar of None, and that's easy. Or keep up this dot here, so the Claws of Life, keep that running. that pounce there needs to be fired, then activated again to add the damage over time. Now, every time you do that again, it will stack up. Look at the buff timers. And again. So what you want to do is weave this in with your light attack raw. The second bonus of the claws, before it runs out, if you reapply it, will allow you to add another stack. So all you need to do, basically, is keep this running. The easiest way to apply that is to actually jump into a stack of enemies. Look at the bottoms of the buffs and debuffs. You can see I've got 6 stacks. That's 600 weapon damage. But if it runs out, look what happens if I pounce loads of people. I don't have to keep it up because I've got it straight away. Just hit it twice. Same with the dot. Covers loads of targets. That's a lot of damage. Now, as long as you can keep that bonus up, so pounce, even if you've got 1 stack, maybe like a couple, the rest of the time, keep up 1 dot and do this. Light, hit, light, hit. It's the raw, number 4 or left trigger. All you do is that. Just spam it. Light attack, hit, light attack, hit, light attack, hit. While maintaining 1 10-second dot and at least 1 pounce. In the meantime, whenever you feel like it, especially if you can keep an eye on your buffs and debuffs, if that fist is coming out of the ground, light attack, heal. That will give you stamina back if you're full health, it will heal you if you're not, and it will give you major berserk. So your hits will be much, much stronger. So it should look really something like this. And then every 10 seconds, reapply this twice, that once, and go back to spamming again. And that's it. What you should be looking at numbers-wise, I mean, you could just be a normal werewolf and not worry about any rotation and just spam buttons. That's also fine. You'll still get about 70k DPS out of it, which is stupid. But you're looking at about 90k for the basic DK version, so the actual build itself. Also, tap the ultimate, you'll come out of werewolf. This mode, about 90k. Werewolf is also 87 to 90k on that dummy. So you can have a very static class with a rotation. Or you could just go wolf and go nuts. Choice is yours. Either way it works. The build is solid. Now it's time to get into the fashion. Now, on my main character, of course, the mask is slightly different. I do, on the live server, have the Grim Reaper mask. It was in the Crown store recently over the Halloween period, but, I mean, it's gone now, but that's what I use. Anyway, the rest of it, we are using... Oh, that's actually pretty cool. There you go. So, the monster set looks pretty much as it should. So, if that monster set ever comes in, put that on. Anyway, Fang Lair, medium chest. Dramaphra, heavy shoulders. Dramaphra, medium hands, light belt, Thieves Guild, heavy pants, and Dramaphra, medium boots. Now, we are using the Wayward Guardian swords and bow, but on my live server, I actually use Troll King, the axes and the bow, which look really, really cool. The color for everything is quite frankly just black. Black him out, VMOS skin if you can get it. Fantastic look. That is actually quite close to how he looks on my live server. So, there you go. Happy days. That monster page, if it ever comes out, failing that, use the Grim Mask. So, hopefully that helped. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of how to approach this particular build, or maybe some insight into how this actually works if you've never seen it before. Just bear in mind, of course, if you want to go werewolf, you can. Thank you for watching. If you're not subscribing, of course, please do hit that button. It is free. And, of course, don't forget to share and show your friends and all the rest of it. But if you want to help support outside the channel, there are some links in the info section for Patreon, the highest, world's highest ESO-based Patreon, by the way. Just saying. Also, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the website, XynodeGaming.com, where this written guide will be as well. Also, keep up to date with the website. Make sure you bookmark it, because there are news pages going out twice a week now, so you can see what's going on behind the scenes, or what's happening in the world of ESO. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.